Good morning and welcome to the Pleasure for Health podcast. My name is Ailsa and I am your host here today. Today, I am excited to talk to you about this idea of desire mismatch. It comes up a lot, and I do get a lot of clients coming in to see me saying things like, my partner doesn't want to have sex as much as I do. I'm really frustrated because I'm not, getting the kinds of opportunities to be close to my partner. I want to connect. I want to have fun and have erotic pleasure. And my partner's not interested. And what do I do at that point? Especially if it's something like you've been, holding on to this for a while. Sometimes I would say there's a communication breakdown. This is pretty much the case across the board. People are in relationships, but somehow we have missed the learning on how to communicate well. So I wanted to dive a little bit into the communication piece, but also just into the let's honor that we're different. And sometimes people go through stages in their life where sex and being erotically active is not in the cards. There's things like you get really sick, and we've all probably felt like that, just having the flu or whatever. Of course, you're not going to feel very much sexual desire in those times. And if somebody has something like cancer or chronic pain, there's many, many reasons why someone would decide that sex was just not their highest priority right now. So, what do you do if you're in partnership with someone like this? Well, along with having a lot of patience, it requires quite a bit of communication and also creativity. And I love to tell people that you remember when you were a kid and you could play with your friends and you had to kind of work out how do you get your friends to play the game you want to play when they might have their own ideas of what they want to play or they're not interested. And those of us who successfully got friends to do what we wanted, we're good at explaining and selling our game. So in this case, it is a little bit like a game, and it's adult play. And if you make it sound fun and less threatening and potentially less about getting to the orgasm or just getting, yourself serviced, but more about the playfulness and the connection and the fun that you might have connecting in that way, then oftentimes even partners that are going through difficult times will respond in some way. Now, the other thing that we often find is that people respond and it's not the response you wanted, and you get you get all disappointed or you write it off as that's not good enough. Now, one of the biggest killers of relationships is that you think your partner is just not good enough. And whether you say that out loud or whether you just think it in your head, the disappointment kills sexual desire. Disappointment in the person for whatever, like they didn't do the dishes on time, they didn't pick up your favorite brand of cereal, they weren't thinking about you, they didn't tell you happy birthday when you woke up in the morning. Many times we have disappointments in life. And if we bring that to our partnership, it often really kills the sexual desire. So there's a practice of, many of us have learned of gratitude, and it really works, when your partner is not feeling great and you're trying to convince them to do something, telling them how they're not doing great doesn't really work that well. If you can find something that they're doing well, like I really loved sitting next to you on the couch and snuggling tonight. It made me feel really connected to you. I hope we can do some more of that soon. That's something like, hey, we did a good thing. You and I had a great time. Let's do more of the great stuff. And I think that goes over way better. It can be hard to think of those things when inside you're a seething massive resentment about the fact that your partner hasn't come forward and reconnected sexually. But again, it is not going to help to just tell them how disappointed and frustrated you are. That will usually just push people more and more away. And so I see couples when they get to that point of, Well, we're so frustrated and disappointed. We have nothing else to do but maybe go to a professional and see if they can do something or make my partner want me again. And, oftentimes it's nothing to do with whether the partner wants you, it's to do with something that's going on for them. And I've talked to people, well, men or people in partnership with someone who's just had a baby. And, I was explaining to them that when you have a child and you're breastfeeding, for instance, there is something about that connection with your baby that is very fulfilling. And it doesn't leave a lot to be desired as far as connection, because you're having this beautiful physical connection. And it's not just about holding the baby, there's physical sensations in your body, in your breasts, in your belly that come when you are breastfeeding that kind of take over from potentially what would be desire for your partner. And I think this is probably biologically helpful in the sense that we need to look after our babies. And so having the mother be bonded and connected and want to be spending time in pleasure with their baby, not sexual or erotic pleasure, but just physical pleasure, is good for the baby. And if it's your child, or even if it's not your child, but you're committed to parenting this child, then it's good for you too. But it's maybe not in the short term good for your erotic relationship with your partner, because they are split now between you and this other small being that really requires more than 100% of your time and energy. So, what do you do about that? Well, communication is helpful. I think being honest about the fact that you maybe feel left out of the relationship, that you maybe you're feeling the lack of close intimacy that you maybe shared before the baby came along. You may have had snuggle time and now it's all about the baby, snuggling the baby, and that's great, but you are missing out on some of that. I would also say that potentially, as fathers and partners of any sex become more involved in the childcare, you will also feel some of that physical connection. You'll probably never, if you're not breastfeeding or really close to the baby, you'll probably never get the full effect physiologically in your body, but you have that physical closeness to another being, and nothing can really overshadow that, I don't think. There's just something really special about that relationship with a young person that you're helping to raise. However, really talking about how you're feeling, like I'm feeling less noticed, less cared for. I'm really noticing the difference in our time to be just you and I. And then, more than just complaining, kind of noticing, actually saying, hey, if and when you're ready, I would love to organize a night out for us, just the two of us, to get connected again. I would be willing to try to find, a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, or a really good babysitter that would be willing to stay with the child while we really go and reconnect, just the two of us. I would love to do that with you. Those kinds of things can go a long way. Maybe even, hey, I'd love to watch the baby so you can have a nap. And then, if the baby's sleeping, could we cuddle for a few minutes before you have to get up and feed the baby again, or something like that? Or could I do the dishes and make you dinner and rub your feet while you're breastfeeding? I know this sounds like you're not getting much out of it, but really these are building blocks for future interactions. You might not get what you want now, but it's going to pay dividends in the future. And, not that you're keeping score, but just if you go along feeling frustrated that you're left out of the picture, and, a year later, you're still feeling frustrated and you haven't made any effort to keep that alive, now you're going to have a lot more work to do in your relationship. And potentially the person who's had the child is maybe still not going to feel how you feel your pain, because they haven't felt the same. They're not having the same experience. I also think that many young moms or older moms, or anyone whose body has changed a lot because of that experience, maybe feeling some lack of confidence in the bedroom because their body has changed. Their ability to, put on the fancy lingerie or to feel good. Like now there's parts that are sore, parts that are flabby, parts that have, scars and stretch marks. There may have been some tearing or some other injuries during childbirth that are just, not healed up very well. Your boobs change shape. Lots of things happen to the body that don't help you to feel your most sexually alive and confident person. So sometimes some real work could be done in that direction of helping the person feel more confident, helping the person feel beautiful again, talking about just caring for the body, right? Caring for the body, whatever it looks like. And this comes up with illness as well. If somebody's been really ill, they haven't exercised as much, their body has changed. It's something about finding where is pleasure in this body that is in the present moment, that has been through stuff. It's not the same body I had when I was 18 or 25 or 35 even. It's changed. How can I love this body? How can you love this body? How can I be confident that I can still feel pleasure in this body? These are all things that are really worth working on and can be worked on gently. I told one of my couples lately that, going to the dollar store together, or, if you're going to buy stuff for the household, just take an extra few minutes and, tease, flirt, pick up an object in the dollar store and say, I wonder what this could be used for. Maybe it's a chamois to polish a car, but you try it out on your skin and it feels pretty good and soft and lush. Or maybe you pick up, a wooden spoon and you're like, oh, that makes a nice spanking noise, and just have some fun and flirt with your partner. And it doesn't have to go anywhere in that moment, in that hour, even in that day. But those moments of flirtatiousness add up to build that underlying connection, that underlying energy that you maybe had with your partner back in the day when you first met. And remember that when you first started dating, most likely, most of us didn't know whether we were going to end up with this person or not. We didn't know whether this date was going to end up with us sleeping together or not. We didn't know any of that. And that was part of the fun of it. So if we can find that excitement about not knowing, about thinking like, well, I'm going to try something and see if it works. I'm going to try holding their hand while we walk down the road. I'm going to try rubbing her back while we're sitting watching TV. I'm going to put my arm around. I'm going to, offer to feed her strawberries and do it really sensually. All of these things, just get creative. All these things that you would have thought about when if you were going on a first date with someone, or let's say a third or fourth date. You like this person, you want to get somewhere, you haven't gotten anywhere yet, and you want to see what works. Try to think about it like that. And if that can work, you'll find that you'll start to build these little moments of connection, these little taps, these little hugs, these little cuddles, this like feeling their thigh against yours as you're, doing your paperwork or whatever. Looking up and smiling and winking if you have a home office together. Like all of these little moments add up to bigger moments, and you will find yourself in the bedroom quicker than you think. So I think this is one of the things I wanted to really lay down for people is to consider that where you are now, even if it's not where you want to be, let's be honest, we're not having as much sex as we'd like. How could we move towards having more connection, more erotic connection? The other piece of this is to consider that sex is not just penetration, or it's not just the goal of everyone having an orgasm. Sex can be everything and anything that is connecting and pleasure filled between two consenting adults. You can have any type of interaction and call it intimacy if you want, but instead of thinking about, well, I didn't come or I didn't, feel fulfilled, did you have pleasure? Did you have excitement and arousal? Did you have connection with your partner? All of these things would, potentially be called sex. And you could then say, well, we actually had intimacy a few times this week. We only had sex once, but we had lots of intimacy. And I think this leads to more and more, times when people are feeling good or when there's not so much life stress going on, might lead to potentially more orgasms and sex in all forms. So, these are some of the things I think are important to think about as you move forward into your relationship. Know that, sometimes it's going to be you having less desire or less interest, sometimes your partner. It's, I would say, not a first priority to then go, well, I need to have sex or have intimacy outside of this relationship, although that is possible these days. If you and your partner decide to open your marriage or open your relationship and look at multiple partners, just realize that all of these multiple partners are also going to have ups and downs in their desire, and so are you. And so if you're doing it just to have more potential closeness or connection, it might not be the best thing to do while you're having difficulty in your current relationship. And, unless you communicate about that, maybe one of your partner's critically ill and potentially not going to recover soon, and they're interested in you having fulfillment for yourself. Maybe that's something you could communicate about. But you definitely want to have compassion and communication in this, and not just jump from something that feels like it's waning to a new and exciting relationship, and then realize that after a year or something, or even a couple months, well, this relationship's waning now too. Now I need someone else. It's not really the answer for that. The other thing I would say that people often don't think about is having self-pleasure, a self-pleasure as a practice. What is it you're missing? What is it you would love to have more of? And how could you give it to yourself so that you don't come to your relationship depleted? You don't come to your partner needing and wanting stuff. Like, that's pretty, it's not very sexy when someone comes when they're just needy and graspy. It's sexy when they come with confidence and, kind of that I could take it or leave it attitude, but I'm interested in you sort of thing. So, what could you be doing more in your own self pleasure practice to fulfill yourself? Maybe you include your partner in your self pleasure practice somehow, even if they're critically ill, they might be able to still watch you. They might be able to, make approving noises or cheer you on, or just give you, take pictures of you, or any type of thing that might be sexy without having to include them in the full activity. So these are some of the ideas that I've shared with clients over the years, and something that I work with. And if you're feeling still that these are frustrating and you don't think it's for you, I would highly recommend potentially looking into working with a sex coach or with a sexological body worker or a somatic sex educator, and look at what is really going on underneath that. What is the attachment piece? What is the desire piece? What is it you're actually wanting? Sometimes it's hard to get to that answer. So I would recommend working with someone. I'm definitely open to consults and seeing if we're a good match. You can check me out on pleasureforhealth.com. I also do lots of these podcasts and YouTube videos to try to give people ideas and things to work on between them and their relationship. So reach out if you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to having you join me again sometime in the future. And have a wonderful, erotic, pleasure-filled day.